Ambassador Park Hyun-woo stood in the massive hall of the Galactic Council. The ceiling stretched so high above him that he could barely see the top. Strange lights floated in the air, casting weird shadows on the walls. Around him sat hundreds of alien beings, each one different from the last. Some looked like giant insects with too many arms. Others had skin that changed colors as they moved. A few floated in tanks of thick liquid, their tentacles waving slowly. Park had studied pictures of these creatures for months, but seeing them in person made his stomach turn. He wore his best uniform, dark blue with gold buttons that caught the strange light. Next to him stood Dr. Kim So-young, a small woman with sharp eyes who knew more about alien culture than anyone on Earth. Behind them, Captain Lee Dong-min kept his hands behind his back, his face showing nothing. The three humans looked tiny, in the enormous space. They had traveled for 6 months to reach this place, Station Nexus Prime, which floated in empty space between star systems. This was the center of galactic power, where decisions were made that affected billions of lives across thousands of worlds. Park cleared his throat and stepped forward. The sound echoed strangely in the vast hall. Conversations stopped. Hundreds of alien eyes turned to look at the small group of humans. "Honored council members," Park began, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "I am Park Hyun-woo, speaking for the people of Earth. We come here today to ask for membership in your great alliance." A sound like laughter came from somewhere. In the crowd, though, Park could not tell which creature made it. Near the center of the hall, a tall being with purple skin and 4 arms raised one hand. This was Velthar, the council speaker, leader of the powerful Dominion Empire. "Humans," Velthar said, the word sounding ugly in his strange accent. "From the little blue world in the outer arm. We have read your files." The alien's 4 eyes looked down at Park with clear disgust. "Your species has existed for what, 200,000 of your years? You only learned to fly between worlds 50 years ago. You have 1 small colony on your moon and a few mining stations. This is what you call civilization?" Dr. Kim stepped forward. "Honored speaker, we may be young, but we have much to offer. Our scientists have made great discoveries. Our people are creative and adaptable. We have solved problems that older species still struggle with." "Problems," another alien laughed, this one shaped like a walking tree with glowing fruit hanging from its branches. "Child species, you do not even know what problems are. We have been traveling between stars for 10,000 years while your people were still hitting rocks together." Captain Lee's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Park had warned both his companions about this. They knew the aliens would look down on humanity. They had prepared for insults and mockery. Velthar touched something on his chair, and a large screen appeared in the air above the humans. It showed Earth as seen from space, a blue and green ball floating in the darkness. "This is your home," Velthar said. "Located in the Orion Arm, one of the most boring parts of our galaxy. No rare minerals, no strategic value, no important trade routes nearby. Even your star is common, just another yellow dwarf that will burn out in a few billion years." The image changed, showing other worlds, beautiful planets with crystal cities that reached into the clouds, space stations the size of moons, ships longer than Earth's biggest mountains. "This is what real civilization looks like," Velthar continued. "Your entire planet produces less energy in a year than one of our smaller cities uses in a day. Your fastest ships would take centuries to cross distances we cover in weeks." Park felt heat rise in his cheeks, but he kept his voice calm. "We understand that we have much to learn. That is why we seek membership. We want to grow, to become better, to contribute to the peace and prosperity of the galaxy." "Contribute?" The word came from a creature that looked like a giant jellyfish floating in a tank of water. "What could your species possibly contribute to beings who have mastered the secrets of space and time?" "We have fought wars and learned to make peace," Dr. Kim said. "We have explored the deepest parts of our oceans and the highest peaks of our mountains. We have art, music, literature. We have dreams of touching the stars." "How touching," Velthar said, and this time the mockery in his voice was clear. A species that has barely left its cradle wants to play with the adults. The council speaker stood up, all four of his arms spreading wide. The Galactic Council has reviewed humanity's application. We find your species interesting in the way that primitive life is always interesting to study. Park's heart sank. He could hear the rejection coming. However, Velthar continued, "You are clearly not ready for true membership. Your technology is too basic. Your understanding of galactic politics is too simple. Your military could not defend a single star system, let alone contribute to galactic security." The screen above them changed again, showing a document with official seals and signatures. Park could not read the alien writing, but he understood what it meant. "We grant humanity observer status," Velthar announced. "You may watch our proceedings. You may learn from your betters. In perhaps 5,000 of your years, when you have grown beyond your current primitive state, you may apply." Again, observer status. Park had feared this outcome. It meant humanity could sit in the corner like children, watching the adults make important decisions. They would have no voice, no vote, no real place in galactic society. "We also grant you a listening post," Velthar said as if he was being generous. "One small station in your system where you can receive our broadcasts, learn about the real galaxy. Perhaps someday you will understand how far you have to go." Around the hall, aliens nodded and made sounds of agreement. To them, this was fair, even kind. They were allowing the baby species to watch and learn. "The session is closed," Velthar declared. "Humanity has been classified as a backwater agricultural world with no strategic value. They are dismissed." The three humans stood, alone as hundreds of alien delegates began to leave. No one spoke to them. No one looked at them twice. They were nothing, just another primitive species that had reached for the stars too early. Dr. Kim's hands were shaking with anger. Captain Lee's face had gone completely still, the way it did when he was furious, but trying to hide it. Park himself felt hollow inside, as if something important had been torn out of him. They walked out of the great hall in silence. Their security escort, a bored-looking alien guard, led them back to their small ship without saying a word. The dock workers loading cargo nearby laughed and pointed at the humans as they passed. As their ship pulled away from Station Nexus Prime, Park looked back at the massive structure through a small window. It gleamed with power and authority, home to species that ruled star systems and commanded fleets of ships that could destroy planets. "Backwater agricultural world," Captain Lee said quietly. "No strategic value." "They will remember those words," Dr. Kim whispered. Park said nothing, but deep in his chest he felt something cold and hard taking shape. The aliens had dismissed humanity without really looking at them. They saw a young species with simple technology and assumed they knew everything about human potential. They were wrong. Park thought about Earth, about the billions of humans who had sent them here with hope and dreams. Those people deserved better than to be patted on the head and told to wait 5,000 years. The journey home would take 6 months. 6 months to think about what had happened here. 6 months to plan what would happen next. The aliens had made their first mistake. They had underestimated humanity. It would not be their last. 5 years had passed since the humiliation at Nexus Prime. Earth had changed in ways that would have shocked the aliens who had dismissed humanity so easily. Admiral Choi Min-ho stood in a room that officially did not exist, buried deep beneath the mountains of Korea. Around him, holographic displays showed the progress of humanity's greatest secret project. The Terran Defense Initiative had grown from a small group of angry officials into something that would have terrified the Galactic Council. "Show me the Mars facility," Choi said to the technician operating the display. The image shifted to show the red planet, but not as tourists would see it. Beneath the surface, massive tunnels connected underground cities where millions of humans worked day and night. Assembly lines produced ships using technology that the aliens had never seen before. Dr. Yoon Jae-sung walked up beside the admiral, wiping oil from his hands with a dirty cloth. The scientist looked tired, but his eyes burned with excitement. "The new engines are ready for testing," Yoon said. We took their basic design and made it 3 times faster. They use the same fuel, but our version can jump between stars in half the time. Choi nodded. This was how humanity had always worked. They took existing ideas and made them better. The aliens had given them access to their old technical manuals, thinking humans were too primitive to understand them. They were wrong. What about weapons? Choi asked. Even better, Yoon grinned. Their plasma cannons are powerful but slow to charge. Our version fires twice as fast and uses less energy. We also developed something they never thought of. The display changed to show a sleek missile with strange curves along its sides. Adaptive warheads, Yoon explained. They study the target as they approach and change their attack pattern. Against energy shields, they become plasma bursts. Against armor, they become kinetic penetrators. The aliens build their defenses to stop one type of attack. These missiles become whatever type works best. In another part of the facility, Commander Han Yu-jin was training the first group of human infiltrators. These men and women had volunteered for the most dangerous job in the galaxy, to live among the aliens and gather intelligence. Remember, Han told his students, they see us as primitive and harmless. Use that. Act impressed by their technology. Ask simple questions. Let them feel superior while you memorize everything. One of the trainees, a young woman named Park, Ji-won raised her hand. What if they become suspicious? They won't, Han replied. We studied their psychology for 5 years. Every major species in the Council has the same weakness. They cannot imagine that a younger species could be smarter than them. To them, age equals wisdom. Since we are young, we must be stupid. The training facility looked like a mock alien city. Human engineers had built perfect copies of alien buildings, vehicles, and technology based on the information from their listening post. The trainees lived here for months, learning to move and act like they belonged in alien society. Meanwhile, in orbit around Earth, the alien listening post sat quiet and unnoticed. The 3 aliens stationed there thought they had the most boring job in the galaxy. They were supposed to monitor human activities and report anything interesting. They never reported anything interesting because they never looked very hard. To them, humans were just another primitive species playing with simple technology. The massive industrial projects happening on Mars and in the asteroid belt were invisible to their sensors, hidden by technology the aliens did not know humans possessed. The aliens had made their second mistake. They had given humanity access to galactic communication networks through the listening post. Every day, human computers intercepted thousands of messages between alien worlds. Trade routes, military positions, political arguments, technical specifications, all of it flowed through systems that humans now understood better than the aliens who built them. Dr. Kim So-young, now director of Xenological Studies, worked with a team of linguists and psychologists to decode not just alien languages, but alien thinking. They studied every species in the Council, learning their fears, their desires, their weaknesses. The Brazok Empire is having supply problems, Kim reported to a meeting of Earth's secret leadership. Their military expansion has outgrown their ability to feed their armies. They're looking for new agricultural worlds to conquer. And the Kalen Republic? Asked General Moon Hyun-soo. Peaceful, artistic, completely unable to defend themselves. They have 17 beautiful worlds in the Outer Rim, far from Council protection. The Brazok have been watching them for months. Admiral Choi leaned forward. How long before the Brazok attack? Our analysis suggests within 2 years. The Council will debate for months before sending help, if they send any at all. The Kalen will be extinct before anyone acts. This was the pattern humanity had discovered. The Galactic Council was not really a government. It was a social club for old, comfortable species who had forgotten how to fight. When crisis came to smaller worlds, the Council talked and argued while people died. Captain Lee Dong-min, now promoted to colonel, managed humanity's growing intelligence network. Human agents posing as traders, tourists, and refugees had spread across dozens of worlds. They all looked harmless, asking innocent questions and offering small gifts from Earth. The alien military is weak, Lee reported. They have powerful weapons, but they use them the same way their ancestors did thousands of years ago. No new tactics, no innovation. They line up their ships and shoot at each other like it's a game with rules. What about their technology? Choi asked. Superior to ours in raw power, but inferior in every other way. Their computers are slow because they're built to last forever instead of being efficient. Their weapons are predictable because they never change the designs. Their ships are huge and impressive, but they can't maneuver quickly. In the asteroid belt, human miners had built something the aliens would never expect. Mobile factories that could hide behind rocks and move to new locations every few months. These facilities produced scout ships so small and quiet that alien sensors could not detect them. These tiny ships had already visited hundreds of star systems, mapping alien positions and studying their defenses. The information they gathered painted a clear picture. The galaxy's great powers were not as powerful as they pretended to be. The Dominion Empire ruled through fear and tradition, but their fleets were scattered across too many worlds. The hegemony controlled the richest trade routes, but their merchants had grown soft and lazy. The ancient collective still possessed incredible technology, but they had retreated to their core worlds and barely cared about galactic affairs. Dr. Yoon made another breakthrough when he solved the mystery of faster-than-light communication. The aliens used a network of relay stations that could send messages across the galaxy instantly. Humanity built their own stations, smaller and better hidden, creating a secret network that allowed Earth's agents to coordinate their activities. We can now communicate with our people anywhere in the galaxy in real time, Yoon reported. Better yet, we can intercept and decode most alien communications. We know what they're planning before their own allies do. The alien listening post continued to send the same boring reports to the Council. Humans developing primitive space technology. No military significance. No strategic value. But on Earth, in hidden facilities across the solar system, humanity was becoming something the galaxy had never seen before. They combined the patience and planning of older species with the innovation and adaptability that made them dangerous. Admiral Choi stood before a map showing the entire galaxy. Red markers showed alien military bases. Blue markers showed human agents and hidden facilities. Green markers showed potential allies, species like the Kalan who were peaceful, intelligent, and ignored by the great powers. How many ships can we field now? Choi asked his staff. 200 combat vessels fully crewed and equipped, Colonel Lee replied. Another 100 in final construction, all invisible to alien sensors when they want to be. Weapons production? Exceeding all targets. We can arm our allies faster than we can find them. Dr. Kim looked up from her reports. Speaking of allies, we've identified 47 species that the Council has abandoned or ignored. Most are peaceful races in remote systems. They would be grateful for protection and friendship. And they would provide us with bases throughout the galaxy, Lee added. Officially, we're just helping them develop their own defenses. Unofficially, we're building an alliance that spans half the galaxy, Choi finished, all hidden in plain sight. The transformation was complete. Humanity had used the aliens' own dismissal against them, while the great powers focused on their ancient rivalries and comfortable politics. Humans had quietly become the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Soon, it would be time to reveal what they had accomplished. The Kalan crisis would provide the perfect opportunity. When the Brazok Empire attacked those peaceful worlds, the Galactic Council would debate and delay as always. But this time, someone would act. Someone would stand up for the weak and defenseless. Someone would show the galaxy what real strength looked like. The aliens thought Earth was trivial. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The attack on the Kalan worlds came exactly as human intelligence had predicted. Captain Oh Sung-min watched from the bridge of his stealth ship as Brazok war vessels destroyed the orbital defenses above Kalan Prime. The beautiful crystal cities below glowed with fires that could be seen from space. 15 million civilians down there, his communications officer reported, her voice tight with anger. The Brazok aren't even trying to spare non-combatants. Oh nodded grimly. The Brazok way of war was simple and brutal, Destroy everything. Take what you want and leave nothing that could threaten you later. It had worked for them for thousands of years because no one had ever made them pay a real price for their cruelty. Any response from the Galactic Council? O asked. They're scheduling an emergency session for next week, the officer replied. They want to send a diplomatic mission to assess the situation first. Next week. O looked at the burning planet. Below. These people will be dead or enslaved by then. The Indomitable was one of humanity's newest ships built in the hidden facilities of the asteroid belt. To alien sensors, it was almost invisible. To the human crew inside, it was the most advanced warship ever constructed. Sir? The tactical officer called out. We have 17 Kalan refugee ships trying to escape the system. 3 Brazok cruisers are moving to intercept them. O studied the display. The refugee ships were slow and defenseless, carrying families who had fled their worlds with nothing but their lives. The Brazok ships were fast and heavily armed. It would be a massacre. Signal the fleet, O commanded. Execute rescue protocol. Around the Indomitable, space seemed to shimmer as 24 human ships dropped their stealth fields. The Brazok had been so focused on hunting refugees that they never noticed the predators stalking them. The first Brazok cruiser exploded before its crew understood what was happening. Human missiles struck with impossible precision, their adaptive warheads, analyzing the alien ship's defenses and changing their attack pattern mid-flight. Plasma weapons that should have stopped the missiles were useless against kinetic penetrators that punched through the hull like bullets through paper. The second Brazok ship managed to raise its shields and return fire. Their plasma cannons lit up space with deadly energy. But the human ships were already gone. Having jumped to new positions using micro-FTL drives the aliens had never seen before, Brazok vessels are requesting reinforcements, the communications officer reported. Their fleet commander sounds confused. O smiled coldly. The aliens were used to predictable battles where both sides lined up and shot at each other until someone's shields failed. Human tactics were based on speed, deception, and overwhelming firepower applied at exactly the right moment. The third Brazok cruiser tried to run, but human ships were faster. They surrounded the alien vessel and demanded its surrender. When Mitsuoin, the Brazok captain, refused, they disabled his engines with surgical precision and left his ship drifting helplessly in space. Broadcast a message to all Brazok forces, O ordered. Tell them that the Kalan people are under our protection now. Any ship that attacks refugees will be destroyed without warning. The message went out in perfect Brazok language, translated by humans who had studied their culture for years. The alien fleet commander's response came back immediately, full of outrage and threats. Who dares challenge the might of the Brazok Empire? Identify yourselves. We are humanity, O replied, simply. And you are leaving. Dr. Lim Haiwan worked frantically in the Indomitable's medical bay, treating Kalan refugees who had been injured in the attacks. The aliens were humanoid but taller than humans, with pale blue skin and large eyes that seemed to hold all the sadness in the universe. Why did you come? Asked an elderly Kalan named Velkari, his voice weak from plasma burns. We have nothing to offer you. Our worlds are burning. Our people are scattered. Dr. Lim looked up from the medical scanner she was using to check his injuries. Because it's the right thing to do. Because someone has to stand up to bullies. Because no one else would. The council, Velkari began. The council will debate and form committees while your people die, Lim interrupted gently. We've seen it happen before. They talk about galactic peace while war criminals destroy entire civilizations. On the planet's surface, Master Sergeant Kang Tae-young was doing something that would have shocked the Galactic Council if they had known about it. He was teaching Kalan civilians how to fight back. Your people are artists and philosophers, Kang told the group of volunteers gathered, in a ruined museum. That's beautiful. But beauty needs protection, and sometimes that protection requires violence. The Kalan had never developed military technology. Their society was built on cooperation and creativity. When the Brazok came, they had no weapons, no tactics, no understanding of how to resist an occupying army. Kang and his team were changing that. They showed the Kalan how to build simple explosives from common materials. They taught them how to move unseen through their own cities, how to communicate without being detected, how to strike quickly and disappear before the enemy could respond. Remember, Kang said, you're not trying to win a fair fight. The Brazok are bigger and stronger than you, but they're also stupid and lazy. They expect conquered people to stay conquered. When you prove them wrong, their entire system breaks down. The first Kalan resistance attack happened 3 days later. A Brazok patrol entered what they thought was an empty district and found themselves surrounded by invisible enemies who struck from every direction at once. Half the patrol was killed or wounded before they could call for help. When reinforcements arrived, they found the Kalan had vanished like ghosts, leaving only damaged equipment and a message written on the wall in glowing paint. This is our world. You are not welcome here. News of the resistance spread quickly through both Kalan and Brazok communication networks. On 17 worlds, conquered people began to fight back using tactics their alien overlords could not understand. Captain O received regular updates from human intelligence agents throughout the sector. The pattern was clear. Everywhere humans appeared, the Brazok war machine began to malfunction. They're requesting emergency reinforcements from their home fleet, his intelligence officer reported. Apparently, they're losing control of worlds. They conquered months ago. How many ships are they bringing? At least 50 heavy cruisers, maybe more. O nodded. The Brazok were doing exactly what human strategists had predicted. They were escalating, committing more forces to hold what they had taken. That would leave their other territories weakly defended. Signal Admiral Choi, O ordered. Tell him, the hook is set. The fish is taking the bait. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, other human fleets were moving into position. The Brazok Empire controlled dozens of star systems, but their military was now concentrated in Kalan space. Their rear areas were protected by only a few patrol ships and automated defense platforms. Human strike teams began hitting Brazok supply lines. Cargo ships carrying weapons and food to the Kalan front simply disappeared. Communication relay stations suffered mysterious equipment failures. Military bases lost power when their fusion reactors developed unexplained problems. The Brazok High Command found themselves fighting a war unlike anything in their history. Their enemies refused to engage in honest battle. Instead, they used tricks and deception, striking where the Brazok were weakest and vanishing before retaliation could arrive. Who are these humans? Demanded General Krovash, the Brazok Supreme Commander. Our databases show them as primitive savages from a backwater world. His intelligence chief, a scarred veteran named Zulkar, shook his massive head. The databases are wrong, General. These creatures fight like nothing we've ever faced. They seem to know our plans before we make them. Dr. Lim had established a field hospital on Kalan Prime, treating both refugees and wounded resistance fighters. The work was dangerous. Brazok patrols regularly attacked medical facilities, but she refused to leave. One evening, as she was treating a young Kalan who had lost his arm in a bombing, Belkari approached her with a question that had been troubling him for days. Dr. Lim, the old Kalan said, your people risk their lives for us and we barely know you. Why do humans care so much about our survival? Lim paused in her work, considering how to explain something that seemed obvious to her, but was apparently incomprehensible to the aliens. On Earth, she said finally, we have a saying, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. When we let bullies destroy the weak, we make the universe a darker place for everyone. But you gain nothing from helping us, Belkari insisted. Your ships could be destroyed. Your people could be killed. What do you hope to accomplish? We hope to prove that someone still cares about doing the right thing, Lim replied. The galaxy has grown comfortable with cruelty because no one wants to pay the price of stopping it. We're here to change that. The tide of battle began to turn when human reinforcements arrived in the Kalan system. Admiral Shin Woo-jin brought 12 more stealth ships and a weapon the Brazok had never seen before, a mobile repair and resupply base that could hide in the outer system and move, as needed. Gentlemen, Shin announced to his captains, the Brazok have committed 60 ships to this sector. The message arrived at Earth through official channels, broadcast on frequencies that the entire galaxy could hear. Supreme Commander Bei Sung-ho read it aloud to the assembled leaders of humanity's secret government. To the terrorist organization, known as Humanity, the message began, "You are commanded to cease your illegal activities immediately. Submit to council authority for judgment and punishment. Failure to comply will result in the complete sterilization of your homeworld." The message was signed by all 5 major powers: the Dominion Empire, the Hegemony, the Brazok Remnant, the Crystalline Collective, and the Ancient Assembly. For the first time in galactic history, the great powers had united against a common threat. "They're sending everything they have," reported Dr. Seo Min-jung from her monitoring station. 600 ships from 5 different fleets, all converging on the Sol system. They want to end this with one massive show of force. Bei looked around the room at the people who had spent 7 years preparing for this moment. Admiral Choi, weathered by years of secret planning. Dr. Kim So-young, whose understanding of alien psychology had made their victories possible. Colonel Lee Dong-min, who had built humanity's intelligence network from nothing. "How long until they arrive?" Bei asked. 3 weeks, Seo replied. "They're using the fastest FTL routes available. Then we have 3 weeks to remind the galaxy why they should never have dismissed us." Around the Sol system, humanity's true strength began to reveal itself. What the aliens had thought was empty space was actually filled with hidden weapons, platforms, camouflaged to look like asteroids or space debris. The orbital shipyards that had been disguised as mining stations began producing warships at impossible speeds. But the most shocking revelation was the ships themselves. Human vessels that had been hiding throughout the galaxy for years suddenly dropped their stealth fields and revealed their true nature. They weren't primitive craft built by a backwater species. They were the most advanced warships ever constructed. General Moon Hyun-soo stood on the surface of Luna, watching as launch tubes across the moon's surface opened to reveal missile batteries that could engage targets in deep space. Earth's only natural satellite had been turned into the largest weapons platform in known history. "Defensive grid is at full readiness," he reported. "All hidden installations are online. Earth Command, we are ready." Dr. Kim worked feverishly at her communications station, coordinating with humanity's allies across the galaxy. The response had been overwhelming. Dozens of species that the Council had ignored or abandoned were now openly declaring their support for humanity. "The Kalan Republic has pledged their entire fleet," she announced. "The Akhari Consortium is providing industrial support. Even the Mordak hives have agreed to share their biotechnology." What had started as humanity's desperate gamble had become a galactic revolution. Species that had never worked together before were united by a common cause, the belief that the universe could be better than it was. Ambassador Park Hyun-woo, the same man who had been humiliated at Nexus Prime 7 years earlier, now stood before the largest gathering of alien species in galactic history. But this time he wasn't begging for acceptance. He was offering alliance to anyone brave enough to stand for justice. "The old order is ending," Park announced to representatives from over 200 different worlds. "The question is, what will replace it? We can build something better. A galaxy where strength serves justice instead of oppression, where diversity is celebrated instead of feared, where no species stands alone against tyranny." The alien fleets began arriving at the edge of the Sol system exactly on schedule. Admiral Velkarian of the Dominion Navy, commanding officer of the combined fleet, studied the tactical display with growing confusion. "Where are they?" he demanded. "Our sensors show minimal activity in the inner system. A few orbital platforms, some mining operations. Nothing that could threaten a fleet this size." His tactical officer, a young Dominion named Kolvek, checked his instruments again. "Sir, we're detecting some unusual energy signatures. The asteroids in the belt seem to be moving. Velkarian activated the long-range scanners himself. What he saw made his blood run cold. The asteroid belt wasn't a natural formation anymore. It was a defensive network of unprecedented scale. Thousands of rocks that had seemed lifeless were actually weapons platforms, mobile shipyards, and communication relays. The entire outer system had been turned into a fortress. "How is this possible?" Valkyrian whispered. "The intelligence report said they were primitive." "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth." The main screen flickered to life, showing Supreme Commander Bay in the uniform of an interstellar naval officer. Behind him stood the same 3 humans who had visited Nexus Prime years earlier, but they looked different now, confident, prepared, dangerous. "Admiral Valkyrian," Bay began, "I am Supreme Commander of Earth's Defense Forces. You have entered human space without permission and with hostile intent. I am required to offer you one chance to withdraw." Valkyrian's forearms spread in a gesture of contempt. "Primitive species, you face the combined might of 5 galactic powers. 600 of our finest ships against your pathetic defenses. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick." Bay smiled, and something in that expression made the alien admiral take a step backward. "Admiral," Bay said quietly, "you have made 2 critical errors. First, you assumed we were primitive. Second, you assumed you were fighting only us." The tactical display exploded with new contacts. Ships began appearing throughout the system, not just human vessels, but craft from dozens of species that the galactic powers had dismissed or forgotten. The combined fleet suddenly found themselves outnumbered 3-1. "Impossible," Valkyrian breathed. "Our intelligence said most of these species were extinct." "Your intelligence was wrong about many things," Bay replied. "But your biggest mistake was thinking that might makes right. Today you learn what happens when the galaxy's forgotten children unite." The battle began when a Dominion cruiser fired the first shot at what appeared to be a small human patrol vessel. The shot never connected. The human ship simply wasn't there anymore, having jumped to a new position using technology the aliens had never seen. What followed wasn't really a battle, it was a demonstration. Human ships moved like ghosts, appearing and disappearing at will. Their weapons struck with surgical precision, disabling enemy vessels without destroying them. When alien ships tried to retreat, they found their exit routes blocked by species they had never heard of. Dr. Seo watched from her command station as Project Stellar Lance reached its final phase. "Targeting Sol," she announced. "Initiating controlled solar flare in 3, 2, 1, mark." The sun exploded with light. Not enough to damage the inner planets, but enough to create an electromagnetic pulse that disrupted every alien ship's electronics. For 17 minutes, the great galactic powers found themselves flying blind and defenseless. When their systems came back online, they discovered that half their fleet was gone, not destroyed, but captured. Human boarding parties had used the blackout to seize control of over 300 ships, taking their crews prisoner without firing a shot. Admiral Valkyrian found himself facing Supreme Commander Bay on the bridge of his own flagship, surrounded by human marines who had somehow appeared while his ship's systems were down. "How?" was all the alien admiral could manage to say. "We had 7 years to prepare," Bay replied. 7 years to study your weaknesses, build our strength, and gather our allies. You gave us time by dismissing us. You gave us motivation by humiliating us. Most importantly, you gave us cause by showing us how cruel the galaxy had become under your rule. The remaining alien ships were given a choice: surrender or face destruction. Most chose surrender. A few tried to fight and learned why their companions had been wise to give up. When the battle ended, the combined fleet of 5 galactic powers had been reduced to fewer than 50 operational ships. The rest were either captured or drifting, helplessly in space, their crews awaiting rescue. Bay stood on the bridge of the captured Dominion flagship, looking out at Earth through the viewscreen. The blue and green world that the aliens had dismissed as worthless now commanded the respect of the entire galaxy. "Broadcast this message on all frequencies," he ordered his communications officer. "To all species, on all worlds, in all star systems." The transmission went out simultaneously from relay stations that humanity had been secretly building for years. Every inhabited world in the galaxy received the same message at the same time. "Citizens of the galaxy," Bay's voice echoed across space, "today marks the end of an era. For too long the strong have preyed upon the weak while others looked away. For too long, cries for help have been ignored because the victims could not pay for justice. For too long, the galaxy has accepted that might makes right. The image shifted to show the captured alien fleet, their once proud warships now floating powerless around Earth. This ends now. Earth does not seek to rule over you. We offer to stand beside you. We do not demand your submission. We ask for your partnership. Together we can build a galaxy where justice matters more than power, where diversity is strength, where no world stands alone against tyranny. News of the Kalan victory spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Fleet Admiral Shin Woo-jin stood in his command center aboard the battleship Defiance, watching intelligence reports flow in from human agents on dozens of worlds. The reaction was everything humanity had hoped for and more. Species that had been written off as extinct were suddenly fielding fleets with impossible technology. Trade routes that had been controlled by the great powers for millennia were now defended by ships that appeared from nowhere and disappeared just as quickly. The hegemony has lost 3 major shipping lanes this week, reported Colonel Park Ji-hoon, now Director of Human Intelligence Services. Pirates using our weapons and tactics have made their trade routes too dangerous to use. Shin smiled grimly. They weren't really pirates, of course. They were liberation fleets crewed by species that had been pushed out of profitable territory by the galactic powers. Humanity had simply given them the tools and training they needed to take back what was theirs. What about the Dominion response? Velthar is demanding emergency powers from the Council, Park replied. He's claiming that an unknown hostile force is destabilizing the galaxy. The other Council members are starting to ask uncomfortable questions about who these enemies are and why the Dominion intelligence services didn't see them coming. On the planet Torth, in the Outer Rim, Ambassador No Yoon-ji was conducting a very different kind of diplomacy than anything the galaxy had seen before. Instead of meeting in grand halls with formal ceremonies, she sat around a simple table with representatives from 12 different species that had been dismissed by the Council as irrelevant. The Akhari Mining Consortium has agreed to provide raw materials, reported Genkai, a insectoid being whose people had been forced off their homeworld by Dominion expansion. In return, will help them establish defensive positions around their new colonies. The Velnari have completed construction of the hidden shipyard in the outer spiral, added Morden, whose aquatic species had been nearly extinct before human intervention. They can produce 50 light cruisers per month using our hybrid designs. No nodded, making notes on her portable computer. This was humanity's real secret weapon, not just their military technology, but their approach to alliance building. Instead of demanding tribute or submission, they offered partnership. Instead of exploiting weaker species, they helped them become stronger. Remember, No said, we're not building an empire, we're building a community. Everyone contributes what they can. Everyone benefits from the whole. The galactic powers had never seen anything like it. For thousands of years, interstellar politics had been based on domination and hierarchy. The strong ruled, the weak served, and everyone knew their place. Humanity was introducing a radical concept, voluntary cooperation between equals. It was working beyond anyone's wildest dreams. In the Vega sector, the Brazok Empire was collapsing faster than their leadership could comprehend. General Krovash stared at reports from across their territory, each one bringing worse news than the last. 17 supply convoys destroyed this month, his aide reported. 12 military bases have gone dark. We've lost contact with 4 entire star systems. How is this possible? Krovash demanded. We're fighting primitives from a backwater world. Sir, the aide said carefully, intelligence suggests these primitives have allies. Many allies. Species we've never heard of are fielding advanced technology. Our occupied worlds are experiencing coordinated uprisings. The truth was even worse than the Brazok realized. Humanity had studied their empire for years, identifying every weakness and stress point. They knew which conquered species hated their overlords most. They knew which Brazok commanders were incompetent or corrupt. They knew exactly where to apply pressure to make the entire system collapse. On the planet Kazul, former slaves of the Uair, Brazok were using human-provided weapons to overthrow their overseers. Master Sergeant Kang Tae-young watched from a hillside as the last Brazok garrison fell to coordinated attacks by 3 different species working together. "Beautiful," said his local contact, a reptilian being named Sektar whose people had been enslaved for 2 centuries. "We could never have imagined this before your people showed us the way." Kang nodded. "The key is making them fight the war you want to fight, not the war they want to fight. The Brazok are used to big battles with clear lines. They don't know how to handle an enemy that refuses to stand still and trade shots." Similar scenes were playing out across dozens of worlds. Humanity had weaponized the galaxy's own diversity against its oppressors. Every species had different strengths, different capabilities, different ways of thinking about warfare. When coordinated properly, these differences became overwhelming advantages. The Galactic Council was in chaos. Emergency sessions were being called every few days as reports came in of new crises throughout their territory. Ancient alliances were breaking down as member species accused each other of incompetence or betrayal. Council Speaker Velthar stood before the assembled delegates, his forearms gesturing frantically as he tried to maintain order. "The situation is clear," he declared. "An unknown hostile force is conducting coordinated attacks against multiple council members. We must unite to face this threat." "What threat?" demanded the representative from the Crystalline Collective. "You claim there's an enemy, but no one has seen their homeworld. No one knows who leads them. For all we know, this is just the result of your own failed policies." Velthar's purple skin darkened with anger. "The Dominion's policies have maintained galactic peace for 3,000 years. "Peace?" The voice belonged to a small, furry creature that rarely spoke in council sessions. "You call it peace when the strong devour the weak? When entire species are enslaved or exterminated? When cries for help are ignored because the victims aren't profitable enough to save?" Other delegates began to murmur agreement. The comfortable assumptions that had held the council together for millennia were cracking under pressure. Meanwhile, in the depths of space between star systems, humanity's most secret project was nearing completion. Dr. Seo-min Jung floated in zero gravity inside a construction facility that was larger than most space stations, watching as robots assembled components for a weapon that would change everything. "Final calculations are complete," she reported to Admiral Choi via secure communication. "Project Stellar Lance is ready for deployment." "Are you certain it will work?" Choi asked. "We've tested the theory extensively," CO replied. "Stars are just fusion reactors on a massive scale. If you know exactly where and how to apply pressure, you can make them behave in interesting ways. The weapon wasn't meant to destroy stars. That would be genocide on an unimaginable scale. Instead, it could make them flare in precisely controlled patterns, disrupting communications and power grids across entire star systems. It was the ultimate non-lethal weapon, capable of shutting down a civilization without killing anyone. Back on Earth, humanity was preparing for the final phase of their plan. General Moon Hyun-soo reviewed defensive preparations that would have impressed even the galactic powers if they had known about them. Every major asteroid in the solar system had been hollowed out and turned into a weapons platform. The moon's surface was covered with launch tubes for defensive missiles. Even Earth's weather satellites had been secretly equipped with particle beam weapons. "If they decide to make an example of us," Moon reported to the Planetary Defense Council, "they'll find out that Earth is the most heavily defended world in the galaxy." The transformation was complete. In 7 short years, humanity had gone from rejected applicants to the most dangerous species the galaxy had ever encountered. They had built alliances, developed new technologies, and proven that the old order could be challenged. But their greatest weapon wasn't technology or tactics. It was something the galactic powers had forgotten existed: hope. Across the galaxy, species that had given up on freedom were fighting back. Worlds that had been written off as lost causes were throwing off their chains. The message was spreading. Resistance was possible. Justice was achievable. And no one had to accept oppression as inevitable. Colonel Park stood in his intelligence center, watching reports flow in from across known space. 37 major conflicts were in progress, all of them following the same pattern. The strong were losing to the weak because the weak refused to fight by the old rules. Estimated time until complete collapse of the current power structure? Asked Admiral Choi. 6 months, maybe less, Park replied. The Brazok Empire is already fragmenting. The hegemony has lost control of their outer territories. Even the Dominion is facing internal rebellions. The Council can't respond to everything at once. And when they finally realize what's really happening, Park's smile was cold and satisfied. They'll discover that the primitive species they dismissed 7 years ago has become the most powerful force in the galaxy. And by then, it will be too late to stop us. The galaxy was about to learn that underestimating humanity was the most dangerous mistake any species could make. The time for hiding in the shadows was almost over. Soon it would be time to reveal just how much the universe had changed.